Welcome to the Deep Dive. We check out your source material, find the core ideas, and break them down. Today we're tackling a really specific bit of tech confusion that trips people up all the time. The idea of an HDMI over coax cable. And honestly, the wildest thing we found in the research, I almost fell for this myself, is companies selling these things, these cables, but the product page literally screams, like in bold letters, do not buy this HDMI over coax cable.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre. So think of this as a public service announcement wrapped in a deep dive. Our goal here is really simple. Explain why a simple passive cable like that, just plain, cannot work for HDMI to coax. And, what you actually need instead if you want to use that old coax wiring.
Okay.
So the root of the problem is purely technical. They're fundamentally incompatible signal types. HDMI, that's a totally digital signal. Think ones and zeros, yeah. Fast, complex packets of data. Coax, though, the standard stuff in the wall. That usually carries analog signals, think waveforms, like an old TV antenna signal or radio frequencies.
Right, okay. So the analogy from the sources helps here. A simple cable is just passive, right? It's just wires, maybe some solder, the connectors. It doesn't have any intelligence, it can't translate. So trying to shove digital HDMI data down a pipe built for analog waves, it's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. The formats just don't match. But hang on a sec. You look at the HDMI plug, it's got, 19 pins? And the cone has its own connector. Couldn't a cheap cable just, map some of those pins across, even if it's not perfect? Like, just to get something through?
That's a fair question, from a consumer point of view, but it fails on multiple levels. One huge one is digital security. Even if, hypothetically, the wiring sort of worked for the picture signal, HDMI uses something called HDCP, High Bandwidth Digital Content Protection. Basically, HDCP is like a digital handshake. Your Blu-ray player or streaming box sends out a protected signal, and your TV has to digitally shake hands, prove it's allowed to show it. If you stick a simple, dumb wire in the middle one that doesn't understand this digital handshake, the whole process just stops. Dead. There's no analog way to do that handshake. So the cable fails right there. Game over before you even worry about picture quality.
Wow. Okay, so that cheap, maybe $20 passive cable, it's literally just selling copper wire and maybe hope. So if you do have coax in the walls and you really need to connect an HDMI source to a TV somewhere else using that coax, you need a box, something with some smarts. What are those things actually doing?
Exactly. You need an active electronic device, a converter or an extender. See, a passive cable just passes the signal along. It doesn't change it. An active box converts it. It takes that complex digital HDMI signal with the HDCP and everything. It processes it, and then it actively modulates it, turns it into a radio frequency, an RF signal that Coax Cable can understand and carry, sometimes over really long distances. That takes power, electronics, intelligence. Yeah, the sources mention some real solutions that actually work, but they're definitely boxes, not simple cables. Things like an HDMI to analog RF modulator that literally creates an old school TV channel signal. Or for maybe better quality, dedicated digital extenders, like there's a Wolfpack HDMI extender over coax mentioned. It can apparently send HD signals like 1,500 feet. But you're looking at, closer to $175, maybe $200 for that kind of active device.
Okay, so the big takeaway for you listening is always double check what you actually need. Are you just connecting two compatible things where the signal just needs to pass through? That's a passive cable job. Or are you trying to connect two different kinds of signals, like digital HDMI and analog-friendly coax? If it sounds complicated, like it needs translation or a security check, you probably need an active box, not just a cheap wire. Don't trust the too good to be true cheap adapter.
Absolutely. And it really highlights this key difference, doesn't it? The gap between a, say, $20 cable that cannot possibly work and maybe a $150, $200 device that works perfectly. Well, that gap is the active electronics. It's the intelligence. So maybe a final thought for you to chew on. Think about other connections you use, maybe old stereo gear or different types of USB. How many of those connections might seem simple but actually rely on some hidden active conversion to function at all? Worth considering before you click buy on the absolute cheapest option.